It takes an average of 8 to 10 years before someone suffering with mental illness receives treatment in America. This is far too long to wait for services. In February, I spoke about numerous pending mental health bills with state lawmakers at the National Alliance on Mental Illness Washington Lobby Day. NAMI is America's largest grassroots mental health organization dedicated to building better lives for the millions of Americans affected by mental illness. Here in Thurston County, we have organizations committed to helping those affected by mental illness. Today, we're going to explore mental health in our community and spotlight the work local organizations like the Thurston Mason Behavioral Health Organization are committed to doing. You'll also hear from someone having personally benefited from those services. I'm here with Mark Friedman, the CEO of the TMBHO, which is the Thurston Mason Behavioral Health Organization. Thank you for being here, Mark, today for this segment. May is Mental Health Month, and so that's where this segment is on mental health. We're focusing on those issues, and no one better than you to ask about this issue. What I'd like to know is what are some of the stigmas surrounding mental health that most people seem to have?
Sure, happy to talk about it. Nowadays, when we talk about mental health, we also talk about it with regard to behavioral health care, because mental health and substance use is, as a co-occurring experience, is so common. So we really aren't separating the two items when we talk about it. So if you don't mind, I'll be talking about both mental health and substance use disorder services and stigma associated with it. Some of the stigmas, you say the community problems related to people with mental health disorders is just that. Is it recognized as a disease, or is it recognized as there's a problem with the person? And we are still struggling with the community and acknowledging that this is a disease, but the problem is that you don't see it like somebody who has a heart attack or has a physical disability. So it's kind of invisible, you just see the behavior. And that is a problem for the community in understanding that this is a legitimate disorder that the community needs to treat and take care of for all of its members. It's very common. Probably the data shows 1 in 5 individuals will have a mental health disorder at some point in their life. The BHO, we focus on the severe end of the disorder, people who are acute or who have a major chronic disorder that really has a huge impact on their life, including having been hospitalized. But we work with trying to reduce stigma. We work with agencies like NAMI, National Alliance for Mentally Ill, who emphasize how to reduce the stigma for families, family members dealing with mental health disorders. Wow,
and you're already touching on how complex this issue is, especially when you're talking about the difference between is it a disease or what just behavior of an individual.
Yeah.
Yeah, very complex. How does the BHO help with community safety in this regard?
The BHO serves the community. We fund agencies to provide services. The BHO's main task is to maintain a network of service providers that do the work with individuals in the community. But we, as the BHO, look at the community need as a whole and where there are gaps in services, what's needed, what's not available, trying to make sure the whole range, the whole continuum of care is made available. And that includes folks who are fall in the gaps of care, who often end up in emergency departments or jail, and we try to make available services so that doesn't happen. So our job is to have a complete network of care, and that includes even providing involuntary treatment when necessary to try to help people at the most severe point of a disorder when necessary. So we focus on the safety net. We focus on trying to make sure that there are no gaps and that people are picked up as early as possible for care and they get what they need.
Well, you bring up two, again, interesting points, and that is whether someone's involuntarily committed or they're run off to triage or there's some type of a crisis they're suffering. So many people come into contact that have mental illness, come into contact with the criminal justice system.
Yes.
How does the BHO help with that individual?
I would say one of the benefits of this particular community is how close, over the years, the BHO has been able to work with the whole law enforcement community, and that's from the patrol officer to prosecuting attorney, judges, defense, the whole range, and especially with the jail. So you're right. Often an initial contact of an individual, or when they in fact fall in the gap and become acute, is with the criminal justice system. So our job is to work closely with law enforcement to see what we could do to provide treatment instead of the person being incarcerated. We really don't want somebody going to jail when they've committed a crime due to their mental illness or due to a crime of survival because of their mental illness. And if we can provide the treatment, if we can provide the necessary medication, make sure there's available personnel even in the jail to work with the individual to shorten the length of stay, we have a better chance of the person then reducing recidivism, not having them go back to jail. So we have, over the years, been able to build a diversion program at different points of an individual's involvement in law enforcement, really trying to reduce that impact and trying to not have the jails be large psychiatric facilities that occurs around the whole country nowadays.
Wow, you're just peeling this onion back, and we're getting deeper.
Yeah.
Because you're talking about working with law enforcement and corrections. So you work with law enforcement pre-arrest or pre-booking to divert them away when the crime was committed out of a symptom of their mental illness, not out of criminal intent, which makes sense. So that's pre-arrest, pre-booking. But then post-booking, if someone does get booked, then you work with the corrections officers or those professionals there to get someone the assistance they need while they're in custody, and perhaps even triaged out of jail?
So doing that whole reentry process. I was even today listening on the news where they talk about opioid use and deaths due to opioid, and how the severity of individuals leaving jail and the chance of their death due to opioid addiction within a certain period of time, and how extreme that is. So if we can work with individuals as they are re-entering to the community, where we can make sure they have housing, where we can make sure they have treatment and necessary medication so they don't fall back into old patterns also, we have a much better chance of success to help the individual in the community. So we've again, all of our treatment service providers working at different points in this whole continuum of trying to support somebody as they are moving back into the community. Also trying to, again, reduce the length of stay of how long they're in the jail, because that just does not help somebody with a psychiatric disorder. Again, one of the benefits of working with this law enforcement community is how to move away from the whole concept somebody does a crime, they should be punished. Because in the case of somebody with a mental illness, we have a better chance of them not committing another crime if we're treating them. And we're having success and support by the law enforcement community that this is a much better route. And the hardest challenge in all this is, again, is probably housing. That is just something we don't have enough of low-income housing, landlords willing to take our population, ability to place somebody who has a felony record. These are all barriers, major barriers for us in just trying to serve somebody, again, with mental disorder that we're trying to overcome. So this is a very complex picture that we work through at a whole number of different stages with all of our partners in the community.
Okay. In the brief amount of time we have left, which is brief, what if someone hasn't committed a crime? Where do they get, what resources are available to them in the community, whether it be through BHO or others?
Sure. So, and that is the majority of our referrals coming into the system. So all of our outpatient treatment providers are access points for treatment. We have a lot of individuals referred to us coming out of the emergency departments, out of shelters, out of almost any location. For a younger population, we do a lot of work, and when I say we, it's the treatment providers are the ones in school settings and other kinds of settings where they're making initial contact and working with professionals in those settings, trying to engage somebody before their symptoms become too acute. We even have like one program that's first psychosis program, trying to get somebody into treatment before they have a major break, and trying to have a better chance of stabilizing them and serving them in the community. So all of our treatment providers, you can find that on our website. You can find that on NAMI. Contacting the crisis line, they have the referrals and all the information on all of our different treatment providers in the community, or even just calling us, we can refer on as well.
Perfect. And in closing, what would you like the viewers watching this this interview to walk away with? What do you want them to know about mental health or mental illness?
Somebody who has mental illness is not somebody who is mentally ill. It's a disorder, it's a disease, it's something that can be cured, it's something that can be worked with. It may be a chronic disorder that never completely goes away, but it doesn't define the person. It is somebody who you most likely know or know of, and it's somebody that the community, if we support, we can help mitigate the impacts on the individual and help them have a happy existence, if you
Wonderful. And you and I have been working together for about 15 or 16 years.
Yes.
And as the chair of the, I'm being the chair of the Thurston Mason Behavioral Health Organization Board. It's a real pleasure working with a true professional that's so knowledgeable and experienced and has great stature in this community.
Well, it's been a pleasure working with you. Appreciate your being there for the program and supporting us as we continue to try to serve the community.
Yeah, Mark, thank you very, very kindly.
Thank you.
I'm here today with Kenna Brooks, a True Blood peer counselor, and we're going to learn about True Blood, and also Bradley Perry, who's also a graduate of the True Blood Life Skills Program, and we'll hear more about that and from him in a moment. But first of all, thank you very much for both of you for sharing your time with us, or with me today, and with the folks at home. But I'm going to start with you, Kenna, and ask what made you want to get into this type of work?
I am a person of lived experience, and what that means is that I am in recovery 13 years from drugs and alcohol, and I've struggled with depression most of my life as well. So when I came into recovery 13 years ago, I entered into a 12-step program and learned that I wasn't alone in my struggles, my thoughts. And while I was in recovery, I met somebody who introduced me to peer support. I didn't know what that meant or what it was. And I learned that it's people who have been there and who have found recovery, and they get to share that experience, strength, and hope with other people. And I thought, what an amazing thing to be able to have a job living in recovery and just doing what I do for myself in my life today anyway.
Mm-hmm. So now you're a service provider with BHO, and what do you do?
Well, I'm a peer counselor with the True Blood program, and I get the opportunity to meet with folks who are incarcerated. They're coming out of jail.
They're not in jail, they're coming out of.
Well, they get into our program first while they're in jail, and they qualify for the program because they have been found not competent to face their charges, or they have a history of being ordered to restoration.
Oh, okay.
So once they class for our program, then the MHPs in the jail and the attorneys get together and they make an agreement for them to actually get released into our program. And that's actually where I come in as a peer support. I get to meet these folks and begin to get to know them, build a relationship with them. But the most important thing is that I'm there when they get released from jail. A lot of times it's a negotiated release. They don't have to spend the rest of their time in jail. They get to come out, connect with me or one of my other peers, and we get them connected to community resources, mental health services, things, temporary housing, whatever they may need to help get them, to help them put their life back together.
It's your lifeline.
Yeah, we consider ourselves a warm handoff between the folks that we serve and community resources. Because sometimes it can be quite overwhelming, especially if you don't have a place to live when you get out of jail. What do you do? Where do you go? You go to what you have been doing, which may be just basically surviving out there in the world.
So thank you. Bradley.
Yes, sir.
Again, thank you for sharing your time and your personal story today with us. Appreciate that because I know it's very personal to you.
Yes.
But how? Tell us how you became involved with BHO and the True Blood program, Life Skills program. And first of all, congratulations on graduating the program too recently. So tell us how you came connected.
I had a flare-up with my family and I went to jail, and it turned out there when I was being interviewed and checked up on that I had schizophrenia and bipolar, and they hooked me up with True Blood, and they said they could help me out, and so far they've been doing an excellent job. They put a roof over my head and they said, we want to teach you life skills. And it's like, life skills? And they took me back here and they taught me how to maintain money and how to maintain myself and keep up on my medication.
Wow. And how long does the program last?
12 weeks.
12 weeks. Was that difficult? How difficult was that?
Some people found it challenging, but I didn't find it that challenging. It was just day-to-day living.
And so, Bradley, you said you were diagnosed with schizophrenia and bipolar. And what type of stigmas have you experienced surrounding that diagnosis in your life?
Usually when I talk about my medication or I talk about what I've been diagnosed with, a lot of people will say, oh, are you dangerous? Are you going to flip out? And it's like, no. But a lot of people really kind of reel back when I tell them that.
Is that within the family and external to the family?
Yes.
Yeah. How's that feel to you?
Well, it's a little off-putting, but I just tell them that I'm okay and I'm in remission and I'm cleaned up and I'm taking my meds and I'm really up to date on it.
Good. Part of this whole segment is on stopping that stigma, just busting it, just cut it down. And one of the stigmas is, of course, in 35 years of law enforcement, I've met a ton of violent people that clearly weren't mentally ill. And I've met a ton of folks suffering with mental illness that are clearly not violent as well. Kenneth, what would you say about stigma surrounding issues of substance use or mental illness?
Well, that's a really good question. I would say that folks who are struggling with mental health issues, substance issues, or even both, they aren't them. They are us. They are we. They are our sons, our daughters, our parents, our cousins. They're even our coworkers, the server at our favorite restaurant. They are we. We are human beings, and every human being deserves to be accepted, loved, supported, encouraged, advocated for. So the reality is that we have to face the fact that it's all around us. We all struggle with something, and it's time that we put down the judgment and the finger pointing and start thinking, what would I do if I needed help? Where have I been in my life? We've all struggled. We've all had that down in the dumps, hard situation, and we needed help. What did we do? Did we know how to reach out for help? Did we know who to reach out for? That's where at least True Blood can help. We can at least get folks connected and help reduce the overwhelming, what do I do? How do I get it? What do I need? We all need it.
You bring up a good point that another stigma is that if you suffer with mental illness, that you cannot be, or you're not capable of becoming a productive member of society. And we've had very prominent presidents of the United States that suffer with mental illness, very prominent and popular actors, actresses, political figures, leaders of organizations that are very productive and very smart, and they suffer with mental illness as well, but it's manageable. It can be managed. So that's another statement that you just brought up as well. Bradley, what did you find to be the most important aspect of BHO for your personal growth?
Letting me know that I wasn't alone, that they'd be there hand in hand with me for the first couple of weeks to really get my feet back on the ground and put me upright.
Interesting you say that, because you opened up with that, Kenna, that we're not alone.
We're not alone.
That we're not alone. It's not up to you to break the stigma. It's up to me, it's up to all of us to break that stigma surrounding mental illness, because it's a huge barrier to human contact. Kenna, you've been doing this for a while now. Let me ask you this: is there a particular powerful moment that you've experienced with a client that is just very profound, sticks out? Or is there too many?
There are so many. You know, it's a wonderful thing when you can walk alongside somebody and you see them smile. You hear them be excited that they accomplished something. Sometimes as much as picking up the phone to set an appointment for yourself can be huge for somebody. Graduating a life skills group is huge for somebody. I am blessed to be surrounded by profound moments. But I will say there's one that sticks out in particular, two of them actually. It's amazing when we can get folks reconnected with family. And one in particular, we were able to reconnect him and help him go back home to his home country. So we have folks everywhere that find themselves in need of help. And that was really profound to be able to be part of that process.
So obviously that begs the next question. You have seen evidence that the BHO or these services truly impact lives in a very positive way.
Absolutely, absolutely.
And it has with you too then, Bradley. Obviously you just shared that.
Yes, sir.
What would you like people to take away from this interview? I'll start with you, Bradley. What do you want people to know about mental illness or mental health?
There's light at the end of the tunnel, and there are people willing and ready to help. You just have to want to succeed. And if you want to succeed, you will succeed, especially with BHO.
Wow, that's pretty dadgum inspirational and positive. What would you like to add to the viewing public? What do you want them to take away?
Yeah, I don't know if I can say that any better. It's not criminal. It's not a death sentence. It's not bad. It doesn't make us bad people. It's just one more thing that we can all help each other with and encourage each other with. It's a learning experience.
Beautiful. But now we've heard True Blood and the True Blood Life Skills Program. We've heard True Blood, True Blood. And when I think of True Blood, I think of some TV show. What actually is True Blood?
True Blood is a diversion and reentry program for folks who have been incarcerated and found not competent to face their charges, or who have a history of being ordered to restoration so that they can face their charges.
Why the name True Blood? How did that, are you familiar with the history there?
I am familiar, mildly familiar. I don't have all the details.
But enough to give us a framework from what True Blood, how we came up with that name.
True Blood is the name of a class member that filed a class action lawsuit against the state of Washington, and specifically the Washington State Hospital.
The mental health hospital.
Mental health hospital, yes.
So True Blood is a case law, it's a case decision,
Yes.
advocating for folks with mental illness.
And it came about because folks who were incarcerated, found not competent, and ordered to restoration, there's a certain number of days, once the determination is found, that there's a certain number of days before a person has to wait before they can get a bed at Western State Hospital. So the period, depending on the specific process, it's either 7 days or 10 days, I think. Anyway, the unfortunate thing is that folks were waiting in jail for a bed for months at a time. During this process, they're not getting help, they're not getting medications, they're just sitting in jail, getting worse and worse and worse while they're waiting for a bed to be restored so that they can face their charges. So they're sitting months in jail before they're even able to face the charges that they're in jail for, which is a shame. So what True Blood is, the purpose is to circumvent that. The purpose is to step in and negotiate an early release so that perhaps while they're in the community, getting connected with mental health services, getting connected with medical services, with support groups, with as many community resources as possible, to just so that they can begin their life, get them a place to live.
Right.
Maybe then, when the courts take another look at whether or not they are competent to face their charges, the good news is that sometimes they are found competent, and so they don't actually have to continue waiting for that bed at the hospital, that they can then move forward with their charges. And another happy side note with that is that since we've been able to work with the attorneys in the court system, sometimes the charges are reduced or even dismissed.
So, but the true inequity or injustice is someone's accused of a crime, they're arrested, they're put in jail, and they're there for months until they can restore competency, and they're incarcerated for a crime they have not been convicted of yet. Correct. And that can be almost up to a year.
Yes.
And so this case law addresses that inequity and helps that individual in the jail to obtain services so that they're not a danger to themselves or others, or they're not a danger from other people from getting attacked, and helping them put in segregation or in a separate unit so they're not assaulted or assaulting. And True Blood is what brought that to this to the BHO as well.
Yes.
And to kind of wrap this up, Bradley, let me ask you, how is your life different before BHO and post BHO?
I was really just spinning my wheels, and I was in a really dark place, and they really brought me back into the light, and they put me back on my feet, and they said there's hope, and they've been helping me look for work if I wanted to look for work. They've been helping me find temporary housing. They've been really going all out to see if they can help me, and they've been doing a wonderful job.
Thank you. And I want to thank you also for reminding folks they're not alone. There's hope. There's restoration. There's light at the end of the tunnel. And again, congratulations on graduating from the True Blood Life Skills Program, Bradley. I'm very proud of you.
Thank you.
And I think our community is a better place for having you graduated that program. So let's look at the camera and say, break the stigma. Break the stigma. Mental illness is as exceptionally complex as is its treatment and funding. We've talked about the stigma surrounding mental illness. The work dedicated folks with NAMI is doing, along with the Thurston Mason Behavioral Health Organization, is having a profound positive impact on the lives of those living with mental illness. I applaud those people with NAMI and the BHO, and I encourage everyone to learn more about mental health issues, and I challenge each of you to help dispel the attached stigma within our community. Stigma-free, hope begins with you. Thank you for watching.